Prepare to discover how some of your favorite foods, from chocolate chip cookies to champagne, owe their existence to happy accidents and forgotten experiments. Imagine biting into your favorite chocolate chip cookie, a classic treat enjoyed worldwide. But did you know its creation was a complete accident? In 1938, Ruth Wakefield, proprietor of the Toll House Inn in Massachusetts, was baking a batch of butter drop cookies. Running low on baker's chocolate, she impulsively broke a Nestlé chocolate bar into pieces, expecting them to melt and blend seamlessly into the dough, just like her usual chocolate. To her surprise, they didn't. The chocolate pieces remained intact, creating a delightful new texture and flavor that no one had ever experienced. She served them regardless, and her guests were instantly captivated. This unexpected success led to a remarkable deal. Nestlé agreed to print her recipe on their chocolate bar packaging in exchange for a lifetime supply of their chocolate. Nestlé later acquired the rights completely, and to this day, the iconic Toll House chocolate chip cookie recipe, found on every bag of Nestlé morsels, is still Ruth's original serendipitous formula. A single, failed substitution resulted in a lifetime of free chocolate and arguably the most popular cookie on the planet. Next, consider the humble cornflake. Its origin is far from a deliberate breakfast invention. In the 1890s, John Harvey Kellogg managed a sanitarium in Battle Creek, Michigan, where he was fixated on digestive health and curbing what he deemed unhealthy impulses in his patients. He prescribed a strict vegetarian diet, believing bland food would temper desire and excitement. The pivotal moment arrived in 1894, when he accidentally left a batch of cooked wheat out for too long. When he attempted to roll it into a flat sheet, it unexpectedly fractured into flakes. He toasted these flakes, served them to his patients, and they were an instant success. His brother, Will, immediately recognized the commercial potential. Against John's staunch opposition, Will added sugar and subsequently founded the Kellogg Company. The brothers famously feuded over the sugar for years. Will ultimately triumphed commercially, while John passed away convinced his brother had betrayed the product's health-focused mission. This globally recognized breakfast cereal, now a multi-billion-dollar industry, exists today because someone simply forgot to cover a bowl. Then there's the refreshing Popsicle. Its story begins in 1905, with an 11-year-old named Frank Epperson in San Francisco. One chilly night, he left a glass of powdered soda mix and water, complete with a stirring stick, on his porch. The temperature plummeted overnight, and by morning, he discovered it frozen solid. He pulled it out by the stick, enjoyed his accidental creation, and seemingly gave it no further thought for 18 years. It wasn't until 1923 that he recalled the incident, made a new batch, and began selling them at an amusement park in Oakland. Initially, he called them Epsicles, but his children coined the name Popsicles, and it stuck. He patented the idea in 1924, and later sold the rights to the Joe Low Company, which transformed Popsicle into a beloved national brand. The simple forgetfulness of an 11-year-old on a cold night ultimately led to one of the world's most recognized frozen treats. And who could forget potato chips? The most popular origin story paints a picture of a rather demanding customer. In 1853, at Moon's Lake House Restaurant in Saratoga Springs, New York, Chef George Crumb repeatedly sent out fried potatoes, only for a particular guest to return them, deeming them too thick. Allegedly exasperated, Crumb decided to make a point. He sliced the potatoes paper-thin, fried them until they were impossibly crispy, and then heavily salted them. To his surprise, the customer adored them. While food historians debate the precise details of this legendary exchange, what's undeniable is that these thin, fried potato slices, initially dubbed Saratoga chips, rapidly gained popularity in the region and soon spread across the nation. Today, the snack food industry built around potato chips is valued at over $30 billion annually. If the story holds true, a seemingly petty kitchen dispute ultimately generated more economic value than almost any intentional food invention in history. The invention of microwave popcorn also stems from an unexpected observation. In 1945, Percy Spencer, an engineer at Raytheon, was working with magnetrons, the devices responsible for producing microwave radiation in radar systems. While standing near an active magnetron, he noticed a chocolate bar in his pocket had mysteriously melted. More curious than concerned, he began experimenting with various foods. Eggs exploded, and popcorn kernels satisfyingly popped. The initial microwave oven he developed was the size of a refrigerator and cost thousands of dollars, requiring decades of refinement before transforming into the compact countertop appliance now found in over 90% of American homes. The specific consumer product, microwave popcorn, emerged later, as manufacturers innovated the paper bag with embedded fats, allowing kernels to be popped directly in the microwave. Yet, this entire chain of innovation began with a melted candy bar Spencer hadn't even remembered putting in his pocket. The global phenomenon that is Coca-Cola also has an accidental chapter. In 1886, John Pemberton, an Atlanta pharmacist, aimed to create a medicinal tonic. His initial concoction, Pemberton's French wine coca, included wine, coca leaf extract, and cola nut. However, when Atlanta enacted prohibition legislation that same year, he urgently needed a non-alcoholic alternative, replacing the wine with sugar syrup. This new syrup was then mixed with still water in pharmacies and sold as a patent medicine for 5 cents a glass, purportedly curing headaches and even morphine addiction. The crucial twist came when carbonated water, rather than still water, was mixed with the syrup, whether by pure accident or by a curious pharmacist experimenting to create something more appealing. The carbonated version tasted dramatically better, transforming the medicinal tonic into a refreshing beverage. Tragically, Pemberton sold most of his stake in the formula before his death in 1888, ultimately receiving a meager sum for what would become the most recognized brand on earth. Asa Candler eventually acquired the rights for approximately $2,300 and built it into the mighty Coca-Cola Company. The robust flavor of Worcestershire sauce also owes its existence to neglect. In the 1830s, Lord Marcus Sandys of Worcester, England, commissioned chemists John Wheely Leah and William Perrins to replicate a distinctive sauce he had sampled in India. After blending the ingredients, they tasted it, found it utterly dreadful, and promptly relegated the barrel to their cellar. 2 years later, rediscovering it by chance, they tasted it again out of curiosity. To their astonishment, the fermentation process had transformed the dreadful mixture into something truly remarkable. The combination of fish, vinegar, tamarind, molasses, onions, and spices had spent 2 years breaking down and recombining into a complex, deeply savory condiment. They bottled it, christened it Leah and Perrins Worcestershire sauce, and it has been in continuous production since 1837. This initially terrible recipe, left forgotten in a cellar, became one of the most enduring and beloved condiments in culinary history, with the Leah and Perrins name still proudly displayed on every bottle. The origins of cheese are far more ancient and anonymous. No specific inventor is recorded for this staple, as it was likely discovered around 10,000 years ago. The prevailing theory suggests that an early traveler transported milk in a pouch crafted from a calf's stomach. This pouch naturally contained the enzyme rennin, which, when combined with the warmth generated during travel, caused the milk to curdle and separate into solid curds and liquid whey. Faced with the choice of discarding the seemingly spoiled milk or tasting it, the traveler opted for the latter. What they discovered was that the curds were not only edible and subtly flavorful, but also more shelf-stable than fresh milk. From this singular, ancient accident, every single variety of cheese ever conceived, from creamy brie to sharp Parmesan, aged cheddar to fresh ricotta, ultimately descends. An entire culinary category was born simply because a stomach pouch did something entirely unexpected to the milk within it. Even the celebratory effervescence of champagne has an accidental past, often mistakenly credited solely to Dom Pérignon, a Benedictine monk in northeastern France. The true history, however, is far more intricate. The double fermentation process that produces champagne's signature bubbles was initially viewed as a catastrophic defect. Still wines would unexpectedly re-ferment within their bottles, building immense pressure that frequently led to explosions, a genuine winery disaster. It was English merchants importing French wines and rebottling them in their stronger English glass who first realized that this fizzy outcome was not a flaw, but a delightful enhancement. Ironically, Dom Pérignon himself dedicated considerable effort to preventing these bubbles, not creating them. By the time of his death in 1715, sparkling wine was already gaining popularity in England, and it took decades for the French to finally embrace what they had long tried to eliminate. The famous quote attributed to him, "Come quickly, I am drinking stars," was almost certainly concocted by a clever champagne marketer much later. The iconic bubbles were, in essence, a brewing accident that many sought to rectify before anyone thought to celebrate them. The ubiquitous ice cream cone also emerged from a moment of necessity. At the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis, with dozens of vendors bustling, an ice cream seller named Arnold Fornacieux suddenly ran out of serving dishes. His neighbor, Ernest Hamwi, a Syrian pastry vendor, was struggling to sell his zalabia, a thin, crispy, waffle-like pastry. In a stroke of impromptu genius, Hamwi rolled his unsold waffles into cones and offered them to Fornacieux as edible containers. The impromptu pairing was an instant sensation, so much so that several other vendors at the fair simultaneously claimed to have invented the ice cream cone. Lawsuits and competing origin stories abounded for years afterward, yet the fundamental truth remains. A simple supply shortage at a fair in 1904 spontaneously created the standard delivery vehicle for one of the world's most beloved desserts. Today, the cone is utterly inseparable from the ice cream it was invented to hold in an emergency. The exquisite tarte tatin, a French culinary classic, also emerged from a kitchen mishap. In 1898, at the Hôtel Tatin in La Motte-Beuvron, France, Stéphanie Tatin was preparing a traditional apple tart. Distracted, she left the apples cooking in butter and sugar for too long, and they began to caramelize excessively, almost burning. Instead of discarding them and starting fresh, she instinctively placed the pastry crust directly over the apples in the pan and transferred it to the oven. Once baked, she boldly inverted the entire tart onto a serving plate, presenting it upside down with the rich, caramelized apples on top. This wasn't her intention, but the result was, in fact, significantly better than her original plan. The Hôtel Tatin proudly served this accidental masterpiece for years, and the recipe soon spread throughout the French countryside and eventually onto menus worldwide. Today, tarte tatin is the generic name for any upside-down fruit tart, an entire dessert category born from one woman's ingenious decision to salvage a seemingly ruined dish. Finally, let's talk about nachos, a quintessential snack. In 1943, a group of wives of American soldiers stationed at Fort Duncan in Eagle Pass, Texas, crossed the border into Piedras Negras, Mexico, in search of dinner. They arrived at the Victory Club restaurant after it had already closed for the evening. The maitre d', Ignacio Anaya, unwilling to turn them away empty-handed, ventured into the kitchen. There, he creatively combined what he found: tortillas and cheese. He quickly cut the tortillas into triangles, covered them with shredded cheese, garnished them with sliced pickled jalapenos, and placed them under the broiler. He served his impromptu creation, and the women absolutely loved them, eagerly asking for their name. Ignacio, affectionately nicknamed Nacho, simply replied, "Nachos especiales," or Nachos specials. From Piedras Negras, this delicious dish rapidly spread throughout Texas and eventually across the entire country. Today, nachos are a ubiquitous staple at stadiums, movie theaters, and bar menus everywhere. A spontaneous, late-night improvisation using leftover ingredients, born from one man's desire not to disappoint hungry customers, became one of the defining dishes of American sports culture.